Let's move towards a brief introduction of this topic. The story is about a hobby, stamp collecting. The main character of the story, Asim, collects stamp as a hobby. This particular hobby certainly proved to be a good for Asim. At the beginning, he collects common stamp, but Uncle Mike told him one day he will find a rare one. Uncle Mike also tells Asim about a rare stamp known as Weeping Princess. Now we're going to move towards the reading of this chapter. A shaft of light fell on Asim's face as he lay asleep in his room. He woke suddenly. He sat up, rubbed his eyes, and stretched. He gave a big yawn and climbed out of bed. Asim was pleased that it was a nice, bright day because his friend Yasser had said he would come and play football with him. It was Sunday, so there was no school, but it had rained that whole week, so the boys were really looking forward to a game of football. He washed and dressed and then ran downstairs to the kitchen where his mother was making porridge. Asim loved eating porridge and always looked forward to breakfast on Sunday. As he was halfway through his breakfast, there was a loud crash and a deep rumbling sound from outside. That sound like thunder, said his mother. I think we are going to get some more rain today. Asim left his food and ran outside. He looked up the sky and his face grew sad. Over the town to the west there was a huge thunder clouds moving towards his house. It will soon be raining here, he thought to himself, and then Yasser won't come. Asim pushed his hand deep into his pockets and walked back to the house gloomily. As he reached his doorsteps, he heard the sound of a car. He turned to see an old Austin motor car pull up outside his gate. A tall, grey-haired Englishman stepped out of the car. He ran to the gate to meet him. Hello, Uncle Mike, he called as the Englishman walked through the gate. Uncle Mike was an old friend of Asim's father. He often came to see the family on Sunday, and it was usually at breakfast time. Because he loved porridge too, he thought that Asim's mother was the best cook in the world. Uncle Mike held up a large brown bucket. Here you are, Asim. I have bought you a present. He gave him the pocket, and as soon as they got inside the house, Asim opened it. In it there was an old album and a metal box. Whatever can this be? He thought as he opened the box. Stamps? He yelled at the whole box tipped over and hundreds of colorful stamps poured out to the floor. In the album, too, there was hundreds of stamps stuck in neat rows on each page. This, said Uncle Mike, is my old stamp album. When I was young, I used to collect stamps. I thought that you would like them as my own children are all grown up now and have gone abroad. Most of the stamps are very common, ordinary ones, but I am sure you will have lots of fun sorting them out. There are no really rare stamps in the collection. However, I am sure that if you continue to collect stamps, one day you will find a rare one. This his eye twinkled and he smiled at Asim. How will I know it if it's a rare stamp, asked Asim. Oh, I am sure you will know when you find one. You have to be careful that isn't a fogged one. Thaw. Now while your mother is making some of hot porridge, sit down and I will tell you the story of Weeping Princess. Just then there was a loud clap of thunder and the rain began to pour down. Uncle Mike made himself comfortable in a large chair. Asim looked out of the window at the pouring rain and then sat at Uncle Mike's feet to listen. Uncle Mike began his story. When I was young, I used to collect stamps. I was very keen on stamps, and my parents were always writing to their relation all over the world. Every time they wrote, They got a reply, and on each envelope that came through the post there was always a colorful stamp. Sometimes their friends wrote to me and sent me stamps of my collection. Now you know that a great number of people in the world collect stamps. In fact, soon after the first stamp was issued in 1814 England, people began to collect them. The first stamp was called the penny black, and today it is worth a lot of money. When stamps are being printed, the printers have to be careful that all of them are exactly the same. If one of the stamp is different in any way, then every collector wants to own that stamp and it becomes very precious. Asim's eyes were wide open and he was listening carefully to what Uncle Mike was saying. His mother came into the room and asked Uncle Mike to come into the dining room because his purse were ready. Asim and Uncle Mike went into the dining room and Uncle Mike continued his story. Well, when I was just a boy, the King of England was a man called George. He was George V. He had been King of England for 25 years. The year was 1936. Now, when someone has been king of 25 years, it is a quite great occasion. The people in many countries celebrated this anniversary. In Canada, they issued a stamp showing the king's granddaughter, Princess Elizabeth. When the when the issued a stamp showing the king's granddaughter, Prince Elizabeth, when the stamp was being printed, the printers made a small mistake. Every 21st stamp on a sheet of 100 stamps showed a tiny colored mark under the eye of the princess. There were only about 8,000 of these stamps printed and every collector wanted one. The stamp became known as Weeping Princess because the mark looked exactly like a tiny ear. Whenever a letter came from Canada, I always looked to see if the Weeping Princess was on it or inside it. But alas, I never found it. Soon afterwards, continued Uncle Mike, some clever people began to make their own copies. They took the ordinary stamps of princes and very cleverly made a mark on them just like tear. Lots of people thought these fogged stamps were real and paid quite high price for them. But I didn't even get a fogged one. Uncle Mike finished his breakfast and went to wash his hands. Thank you, he said to Asim's mother. That was most delicious. He gave her a big smile and then turned to Asim. Well, Asim, I hope you have more luck than I did. Look after the stamps well, and one day you never know, you may well find a very rare stamp. I hope so, said Asim. That would be really exciting. Thank you very much, Uncle Mike. Now I have something to do today. Uncle Mike laughed and went into the next room to talk to Asim's father.